The conflict in Syria has entered a new phase. Reinforcements are crucial but sparse at the moment. Junior and his Ethiopian levies might be able to help if they can defeat the children of the sun, who marched out to face him on the field. Compared to the common belief of the only proper way to do warfare is through a pike front line, Junior decided to do something different. Knowing the Medewi had faced and defeated a standard Egyptian army in the past, an unexpected tactic might do the trick. Instead of having them in the center, the pikes would guard the flanks with our weaker, yet still highly experienced native fighters in the middle. As we approached the Medewi, our center would slowly advance ahead of our other units, to lure in the enemy. Once they were close enough, our lines would rapidly retreat to form an inverted wedge, completely surrounding the Medewi forces. With this epic show of divine power, the Medewi commanders fled back to their capital in fear of what the heir of Egypt might do to them next. Their third army, however, was still on the loose, only a short trip away from the gold mines of Axum. Our agent made a desperate attempt to slow them down, but was unsuccessful. Yet if Junior could seize their field rations supplied by their capital, we might be able to slow them down for good. All it truly required was a few rather tedious days where our native cavalry would hunt down their skirmishers, carving a direct route to the Medewi fortress along the Nile. I'm not gonna lie to you, we slaughtered half of the population purely out of spite and vengeance for what they did to the promised general Lysandras. May his memory forever be remembered by the pyres lit in the streets of our enemies. During this decisive war strategy, he proved he was a skilled tactician with a keen eye for ambushing. All the gold received from this siege was instantaneously invested into developing the Temple of Hathor-Mat and the trade port in Myos Hormuz. Now, all that remained was to deal with the guerrillas stealing supplies from the locals to supply themselves. However, after being thrown into disarray by Alexander's Ethiopia, all we really had to do to end the war was assassinate the last few leaders still determined to continue the war. A task our heroes easily dealt with, bringing peace to this war-torn province for good. In the north though, the situation looked more dire than ever before. With almost 3 full legions near Macedonia and another in Antioch, Jason and Ptolemy immediately retreated back to their already occupied surroundings. Jason even went as far to recruit more men. Thankfully, the muster field in Demetrius is almost complete. That way they can at least get some form of reinforcements. Because as it turns out, Junior might not reach Syria after all. Utterly unprovoked and without cause, the Igarimen betrayed us. We will never trust barbarian scum like them ever again. On the positive side, we have actually assured complete control over 3 provinces, granting us a major unexpected flow of wealth. A bit surreal really, but it did come with a bad omen in regard of the high priestess intending to introduce a temple tax. Obviously not believing the gods were greedy enough to demand charges for being worshipped, we stopped her. A clear mistake once again, as the gods punished us not long after, enforcing the temple tax. In Libya, our spy had already found the first enemy army on its way towards Ammonium. We couldn't disrupt their supplies, so Irenaeus, the new guardian of the western provinces, marched to their rescue, immediately recruiting more locals to honor their pledges to defend their homeland. A feat that caused a lot of unrest. As always, it was dealt with by organizing national games like we've done in the past. But as he couldn't actually stay inside the town, the commander decided to disguise his army just outside, hoping to perform a surprise attack on the Igadi men. As the fog of war shrouded the eastern banks of the Tigris, tension rose drastically. It created a constant fear of potentially being besieged by the 3 known Seleucid armies roaming in that region. Perhaps they're going north to retake their livestock farms in Chersonesos. Maybe doubling back to approach through Nabatean lands and hit us from the south. There are endless possibilities, none of them good. Archelaus and his gods of war army that broke the siege of Antioch was gone. Fearing they hit close to the crossroads between Phoenicia and Demetrius, Ptolemy marched out to discover the truth. But as he quickly realized, nothing was here. Fear of it all being a massive scheme to lure the pharaoh out into the open fell upon him. Through paranoia, a fortification was established, which possibly was exactly what he needed to discourage an enemy ambush. To sustain what seemed to become a long war, and as a way to further militarize Demetrius, a supply pit was constructed, making us less dependent on Phoenicia with a dignitary to supervise everything. With the Igarimen at our throats once more, thoughts about the Carthaginian traders abandoning us was a major concern. Thus we offered them a non-aggression pact, a deal which they accepted, knowing us Greeks are a reliable folk. But regarding our war effort against the Seleucids, we wanted to open up a second front, hoping to divide the armies. Without much trouble, a defensive alliance along with a major payment of gold was agreed upon, together with the Atropatene Khan, the first official alliance for Egypt. A major deterrent for any other nations with devious ideas to attack us. This extra gold we had received was actually spent on pirate mercenaries to assist our navy in preparations for an amphibious assault. Their salaries were rather high, meaning sacrifices had to be made elsewhere, Junius's elephants among others. During a short patrol by Jason close to the main bridge across the Tigris, he spotted the enemy in reality were far closer than feared, being practically face to face. The Egyptian commander immediately raised the alarm, building blockades all around Europos. But if they are to attack us, let's show them what happens to the ones making raids on our town. As the lighthouse signaled the approach of our fleet, our men just improved their morale. Surely it was lit by someone cheering our return home. What a sight it must have been. As we closed in on the beach, we ordered our marines to make landfall. In principle, our plan was to overwhelm the garrison with our superior speed and vision. Chaos would ensue. With Cyprus firmly under Egyptian influence once again, the seas were all but secured. The only true threat could be another pirate uprising, yet I have high expectations of our fleet being able to take them down. This port itself demanded a huge amount of our national food supply, meaning minor reworks of the settlement had to take place. And what is next for the fleet, you might ask? Well, as we all probably know, the Igarimen stole Kyrene a long time ago. A fitting target for Achilles and their formidable marines with strong helmsmen. The hiding scheme used by Alexander's Libya had paid off. The Igarimen had foolishly besieged Ammonium, allowing our legion to cut off their escape with a balanced stance. It was at the expense of many great warriors, forcing the commander to order military conscriptions. It couldn't go fast enough as our spy unraveled the location of two equally strong armies on their way along the same road. Fortunately, the garrison in Kyrene was rather underwhelming compared to our last few encounters, meaning with enough ships, our fleet might be able to take it by force. Junior still hadn't made it out of Ethiopia by this point, meaning Alexander's Libya was on its own for now. Surprisingly, the Seleucids never attacked Europus. Confused by this, Jason sent out a major patrol just to find out the enemy had vanished. But where were they? Had they returned to Armenia? Was it our Atropatkhan allies intensifying their pressure? Or perhaps our Pergamene brethren had dealt some massive blows on the field? We couldn't know for certain, but rejoice we certainly did. It allowed Ptolemy to close in on Antioch again, this time with a bit more caution than before, just in case Archelaus was within the fog of war. It must have been a combination of all, as the pharaoh realized Pergamon had reached Samosata. Expecting them to have defeated most of the Seleucid armies in the region, another siege was established, with the light siege towers being constructed to scale the massive walls of Antioch. We had to take this jewel of Syria before the Pergamene did. Jason also saw this as a sign of weakness from the Seleucids, ordering his entire army across the Tigris in an attempt to liberate Macedonia.